The property deed on your home may contain racist language. Racial restrictive covenants were pretty popular during the first half of the 20th century. The policy prevented people of color and other groups from living in certain neighborhoods. Now, although these contracts have been illegal for decades, they are still impacting communities today.
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Miguel and Maria Cisneros of Golden Valley enjoy frolicking in their front yard with their 2 dogs and 4 children. Spending quality time with loved ones is essential to them, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. But this idyllic moment almost didn't happen. When they purchased their home, Maria, who is also the Golden Valley City Attorney, found something surprising on their property deed.
This house that we own had a racially restrictive covenant. We found it in the documents when we were purchasing the house.
The document states no person of any race other than Caucasian race shall use or occupy any building or any lot, except that this covenant shall not prevent occupancy by domestic servants of a different race domiciled with an owner or tenant. So this covenant would have prevented Miguel, who's from Venezuela, from living in the home.
I was very upset. I felt very aggravated. It was like the first time that I felt racism against me.
Eventually, they had the racist language removed from the deed. Miguel says at the time, it made him feel not welcome.
By the fact that it was still being there, it makes me feel like, why do we continue having this? Why hasn't someone not taken this down?
And that's what Maria wanted to find out too. She decided to look into city records and find other restrictive covenants.
One of the things I like to look at when I'm researching this is what were the social conditions that were happening at the time that those developments were taking place that made people feel like that was something they wanted to do.
This interactive map by the University of Minnesota Mapping Prejudice Project shows which communities in Golden Valley had covenants.
The pattern is so strong, so striking. The way developers were super careful when they developed right on the Minneapolis border to make sure it was all racially restricted.
This happened all over Hennepin County, including at my home in Minneapolis. Here's what the covenant says on my property. Shall not be sold to, leased to, or occupied by any person or persons other than members of the white or Caucasian race.
It's not even necessarily connected to when your house was built, because the lot could have been platted, a couple decades even before your house was built.
During the development of Golden Valley, there was an effort to ensure it was an all-white community. Community developers and even city officials were complicit in using restrictive covenants.
I found Planning Commission and City Council Commission minutes from the City of Golden Valley from 1938 that had a requirement that the developer put the covenant in the development agreement.
The U.S. Supreme Court made restrictive covenants illegal in 1948, but people continue to use the controversial contracts privately.
Making them illegal was not enough to really change the demographic patterns once they were established.
The racist contracts created homogenous communities.
That concentrated whiteness just has stayed in place 50 years after the Fair Housing Act.
The covenants also caused concentrated wealth within the white population.
They signaled to investors, to developers, to policymakers that these areas that had covenants were safe places for investment.
The neighborhoods that had covenants got more investments, everything from parks to street improvements.
A house that had a covenant on it compared with a house that didn't have a covenant, even if they were identical in the same neighborhood, the house that had the covenant on it today is worth 15% more.
In 2019, the Minnesota legislature passed a law to allow homeowners the opportunity to remove the restrictive covenants on their properties.
All systems participated in this, and we can start to kind of take apart what that means and what we need to do going forward to try to correct it.
The Golden Valley Human Rights Commission recently started a program called the Just Deeds Project, which provides free legal and title services to help people remove the racial restrictive language.
We are working not only to raise awareness, but to figure out what we can do to kind of right this historical wrong.
While some might say removing derogatory language off property deeds is just symbolic, others like Miguel say it goes much deeper than that.
The feeling of it is still there, and it's like having a sliver on your finger of like a piece of wood that is bothering you.
Find more local news stories at ccxmedia.org and follow us on social media.